Good morning, Unreal Fest. How are we doing today? Yeah. Welcome in. My name is Matt Ostale. I am your Master of Ceremonies today. And I am proud to introduce your speaker for this talk. He flew in all the way from Finland, and boy, are his arms tired. He is tall, he is pale, he is handsome. Give it up for the BAFTA award-winning Ari Arnbjornsson!
Hello, Prague! This is setting up an Unreal studio the epic way. Thank you. I have two people helping me today. First, you might know him from presentations such as Night for Artists and A Whole New Open World, also as the organizer of the Titan Collaborative Art Jam. Please make some noise for Aaron Langmead!
Thank you, Prague!
My next assistant, you might seen a lot of his tips and tricks in Unreal talks, or you might just have come from his talk about the unfeatured features of Unreal Engine. Coming all the way from the land down under. Make some noise for Chris Murphy! They're gonna be my human t-shirt cannons for this session. So we have some swag. How this is gonna work is that every once in a while we'll have a little wrap up. I'll put on the music that you just heard from my intro. And I will summarize what we just learned. And at the end, I want some audience participation. I want you all to go the epic way. And I want it to be loud. I want to see those horns. I want to see hands in the air. I want to see the air guitars. And if you do it truly epic, you'll get some swag. Let's put it to the test, shall we? You've just learned the rules of the game, and you realize if you're gonna have any chance of getting those unrelenting t-shirts, you're gonna have to do things which way? I don't know. Okay. I saw a lot of people there not doing anything. What do you think, Aaron? What do you think of that? Was that epic enough?
It was shit.
Oh, wow. Please censor that out. What about you, Chris? What, was this epic enough?
I think we're in Prague, so you should check again.
Oh, thank you very much. I said, which way are we gonna do this? That's right, get some swag. Oh my God, don't hit anyone in the face. Thank you, boys, thank you. Okay, but this is also a technical presentation, so let's get to it. This is not all fun and games, this is dead serious. So what is the epic way? It's not the Epic Games way. When you think about the Epic Games way, it's very Fortnite-centric. Not all tools that we use are available publicly, and the workflow just honestly won't fit everyone. Then we have on the opposite end, the community way. That's how everyone else is doing it, the small studios, the big studios. And I did a lot of interviews to see like, how should people be doing it? How are they doing it? How do they want to do it? How do we expect them to be doing it? And I tried to find this golden middle way that I would call just the epic way. So hopefully it's the best of both worlds. So who is the epic way for? If you're a growing or mid-sized or even larger studio, you gain the most from this presentation. Most of the slides are going to apply to you. Maybe not all, but you know best. If you're a smaller studio, you'll be able to use some of these tricks. You should pick your favorite ones. Maybe half of them. I don't know, maybe less. Are you a solo developer here? Honestly, you will not find the need for most of these tips, maybe one or two at most, but hopefully something. We have a lot to talk about. I'm not going to list this up. And you might think, Ari, I'm watching this online. Am I really going to have to see you go like, throughout the entire thing? No, don't worry. I actually just put this up in text format online. So if you don't, you can just scan this and go. I won't be, actually, no, don't do that. Stay here because you can still get swag. You can just scan this, or if you don't want to scan it, Just search for setting up an Unreal Engine Studio the Epic way, or just it's on the top of my website, are.games. So just remember, Are makes games, Are games, and all of the things I'm talking about right now are there right now. Let's talk about version control. Ooh, sexy. So we have out-of-the-box support for 4, Perforce, Plastic, SEM, Git, and SVN. And I put them in these circles, and the circles don't signify anything. It was just a slide template, and I was like, that looks nice. But there's a little bit of reason why I put Perforce in the big circle. It is because that's what we're using at Epic Games. So all of our processes are built with Perforce first in mind. And it's required for our workflow tools. Unreal Game Sync, Horde, RoboMerge, they only support Perforce currently. So if you want to use these tools, you're just going to have to, bite the bullet if you don't want it, or you get to go, yeah, I get to use Perforce. And I mean, it is used, like I did a lot of, like I said, interviews for this with other studios, and honestly, most of them are using Perforce already, and so it has been proven at scale. But what about smaller studios and solo devs? Because you might not need our workflow tools. You might not need Unreal Game Sync, Horde, RoboMerge. In that case, you don't need to use Perforce. You can use whatever. You can use Plastic SEM or SVN or Git. There might be a better or even a more affordable or even free fit for your purposes. So now you've chosen your version control and it's time for some workspace practicalities. I would say be aware of the max file path. It's only 200 and something characters, so try to choose a very shallow folder for your workspace. I usually put it straight on the root of the drive or maximum 1 subfolder, and if you do that, then you have more leeway of making subfolders in your project itself. Also, of course, choose a fast SSD for your workspace. I would recommend turning off the NTFS on Windows last access feature if you don't need it. It's basically like every time you even look at a file, Windows marks it and it slows things down a little bit. You can just turn it off. Also, the workspace, it's your files, so you can, I hope you trust your own files from your own team, so you can just exclude it from antivirus, or if you're working at a company that does require you to have antivirus on, you can check out Microsoft's Dev Drive, which offers asynchronous scanning, which is faster, but not as fast as turning it off. Then you should get Unreal Engine source code. Oh, do I have to? You don't, but I recommend it. There are some reasons. Better debugging. We only have stripped debugging symbols with the launcher that you get from Epic Games Launcher. But if you compile it yourself, you get full debug symbols. You can also insert into the code little descriptive logs or conditions for debug breaks. Also, if you have a game and you're about to ship it, and there's a bug in the engine, in Unreal, no, it happens, then you don't have to upgrade all of Unreal just to find a fix, which can be very, it might break something else. So just being able to pick only that one fix and putting it into your code is a lot of freedom. So Unreal is great for shipping games because of that. And also, you can modify the engine. You can do whatever you want with it. We encourage you to. We don't give out trophies for not touching the engine. If anything, you get a little achievement, touch my first engine code. So don't be afraid to make modifications or fixes to the engine, but don't also go overboard. Take into account that you will have potential conflicts when updating Unreal. So where can you download Unreal from? If you are a custom licensee, you get access to our Perforce server. You can download it straight from there. If you have an Epic Biz Dev Manager, you can talk to them about getting a custom license. It only makes sense for studios that already have a publisher or already making games with a multi-million-dollar budget or expected multi-million-dollar revenue. But for everyone else, there is GitHub. It's free for everyone. It's the same stuff. It's the same commits. Just you don't have the change list at hand, but it's in the description, so you still have it. And it includes the original description also. And you can get started right now for free at unrealengine.com/UE on GitHub. When you have the source code now for Unreal Engine and it's time for a new Unreal version, this is how we and even Perforce recommend integrating it. So you have 3 streams or branches if you're not using Perforce. So I recommend having one stream for just clean Unreal Engine drops. In this image, it's dev_unreal_upstream. And there you just take an Unreal Engine drop, you just delete your old one, put the new one in and reconcile, and it's just clean, only Epic's code. Then I would have one stream only for merging and solving conflicts. So dev Unreal merge in this case. So you copy up, and then you merge down from main, and then you'll have maybe a bunch of conflicts. Oh no, and you start solving them. The thing is, having it in your own branch means that now the team can keep working with the old version without mixing in with what you're doing. And then once you've solved all the conflicts, you merge down again. You'll have some maybe more conflicts, but like only a few more. And then eventually you'll be able to merge down and no conflicts, and then you can copy up. And another good reason for doing it this way is because resolving the conflicts can take days or weeks, or I've talked to some of the biggest studios using Unreal where integrating a new version takes about a month or a bit over a month. So being able to do it in a branch, much better. Optionally, I just added this point, just like, oh, we need this last minute change. Resave the assets after doing a major engine upgrade, because every time you load an asset, and if we have changed it, it does a little upgrade path in post-load. And it's a tiny bit extra time that it does doing it, but it will do it every time for every asset. So if you just save them down again, it will then be in this new upgraded format. So we have a commandlet called resave packages, which you can just resave everything. This is usually what we do every once in a while. I recommend studios do it after upgrading one or many Unreal versions. And then it comes to branching strategy. I know many people are, I want feature branches. And unfortunately, we don't really do that. We don't do it at Epic Games, and many studios don't really do it either. They will just commit content, mostly content, directly to main. So we try to have as few branches as possible to prevent conflicts. We mostly do release branches, and this is actually how we do it at Epic Games for Fortnite. So we have release 28.0, which is like just about to come out in a day. Then we have release 28.10, which is like just 1 week or 2 weeks from release. We're just finishing it up. And then we just created release 28.20, where we're just putting on the finishing touches. All of these merge down. So we have 28 goes to 0.10, 0.20, and then eventually down to main. We used to have a manual process for doing it, but now we have a tool called RoboMerge that does it for us. I'll talk a little bit about RoboMerge in a while. If you really, really miss feature branches, I would recommend using game feature plugins. That means you can work on it. It injects itself into your game, so you can basically have your continuous integration build your game without the game feature plugin, but then you can develop it. So it's basically like a feature flag. That's how we do it. That's how I recommend you do it. We also have inter-branch locking in Unreal. If any of these branches that are like coming down in that flow, if the asset is locked in it, then Unreal will tell you, hey, it's locked in those branches. Or if someone has committed it, of course the lock isn't there, but you still don't want anyone to touch it because it's going to come down that branch flow and eventually overwrite your changes. So you can tell Unreal also about those branches, and then it will tell you, like the lower image there, hey, this has been modified in a branch that will overwrite this asset eventually. You don't want to touch it, otherwise there will be a conflict in RoboMerge. And you can tell Unreal about these branches, because Unreal, it can't just guess. But there's a few different ways of doing it. You can just tell it with some source code. I don't recommend doing it like that, but you can. Ini file, where you just easily change an ini file. And actually, City Sample has an example for that in City Sample Unreal Ed Engine class. It only has a single branch reading from ini file, but the code is there. And then lastly, how we do it is that we read the RoboMerge config file, because that's also in Perforce. So we just read and say, like, okay, so whenever we set a RoboMerge flow, Unreal will automatically know these are the branches that are incoming. I'll talk about RoboMerge in a while. And this is very important. If you have Unreal built from source, you need to be using the native folder structure. And if this is your first time hearing about the native folder structure, I'm really sorry. We have not been very clear on this before. We haven't had any documentation about it. I've actually helped them write the documentation. If you go to the compendium article that I shared at the beginning, there's going to be links there. But the native folder structure is very important, and a common thing to get wrong. I've gotten it wrong in a big project, and it was a headache to fix. And I've talked to other studios, and they all either like, oh yeah, we knew of this because someone else told us about it, or we got it wrong, and it was a headache to fix. But how it works is that the engine folder that contains the Unreal source code should always be at the root of your workspace. Always. You cannot put it in any subfolders. You cannot put it into the project folder. You can't have project A, source, engine. No. It sounds logical, but don't do it. It needs to be at the root. But then all the projects can be in that same folder or subfolder of that folder, or even a subfolder of that subfolder. You just need to tell Unreal where to search for these subfolders, and you do that with the default.uproject dirs directories, dir, uproject dirs. And there, it's just a text file. Just put as many ones as you want. We use it aggressively. We have a lot of subfolders at Epic. Yeah. Okay. That was a lot of stuff, huh? You just learned about perforce, branching, and locking, and about the very important folder structure of native folders. You realize you've just set up the foundation for doing things truly. That's right. Get some swag. So, Unreal Game Sync, this is what it looks like. What it's for is, it's basically a front end for Perforce. It syncs, you can choose a commit, you can sync to it, you can build it, and it will launch Unreal if you choose so. There's like little check marks at the bottom where you can choose those. It uses also metadata from Horde. So you can see those green badges over there. These are like whether it compiles successfully for Windows and PlayStation and stuff like that. You can see they're a little bit lower. There's some red PlayStation builds that have been failing. It's really nice to know which commit you should be syncing to. And you can also mark good or bad change lists. So let's say maybe you don't trust what the continuous integration badges say. Then anyone can right-click a commit and mark it as good or bad. And then there's a little circle there, the green one, or a gray one if no one has marked anything, or red if someone just right-clicks and say this is good or this is bad. You can schedule syncs. Let's say you have slow internet or slow computer. You just say, just before I come to work tomorrow, download the latest change list, compile the engine, and run it so it'll be ready when I come to work. It also has sync filters. So you don't want to download, for example, all the developer folders or the platform files. You can just go to project options and select skip these folders, and then it won't even download them. And you can configure that in the ini file with Unreal Game Sync. It will version the local editor for you also, which means that if you are in Unreal and then you update some assets just through Unreal itself, if those assets have some, are depending on the code files, that basically means that if you would open them, you would lose some data, Unreal will just refuse and say like, hey, I'm not opening them, it doesn't have the right version. So even if you're not using Unreal Game Sync, I recommend you version your local editor by running a command line. There's more info in the compendium article. It has support for pre-compiled binaries, so not everyone needs to compile Unreal. The programmers might want to compile it, but then anyone else, they can just download it after syncing, and it will download it from Horde or from Perforce. You can choose either one. And usually the initial download, you can just send it, share it on Perforce, or how we do it is that we put it in Horde. So you just click Tools and Downloads and download Unreal Game Sync from there, and then it updates when it sees a new version in Perforce. And I've been saying Horde over and over again, and you're like, Horde, what is that? Some of you might think, oh, Horde, yeah, that's the continuous integration system. Slap on the wrist, because that's what I got when I called it a continuous integration system. It does a lot more. So it's not what Horde is. Horde is a one-stop shop for team workflows. What Horde does is, yes, Unreal-specific continuous integration, but it also does studio telemetry, device management, build acceleration coordination, and it's also the metadata server for Unreal Game Sync. And like in the future, whatever else we think putting in there, we'll just put it there. Horde can be run in the cloud or on-premise. You can see more in-depth talk. Actually, I just learned that Mark is not going to be talking that much about Horde, but about developer iteration. But in any way, you might want to check out his presentation at Unreal Fest. It's going to be called Dev Iteration, How to Improve Developer Efficiency in Unreal 5.4 by Mark Lintet. So the continuous integration, this is what it looks like. Why would you choose Horde continuous integration if you, for example, already have Jenkins or if you have TeamCity? Usually, you don't need to. Like, if you already have a good process, just stick with it. But if you're choosing a new one, maybe you might want to go with this. But I'll also tell you some of them why Horde is better than the others. And the biggest reason is because it has built-in build graph support, and especially for the automatic parallelization. So let's say you have a build graph that has a few jobs, few tasks, and some of them depend on each other. Horde will automatically see, oh, these can be run in parallel. Like you can build the editor, and then all the platforms can be run in parallel. In that case, it will just do it on Horde if you have those agents set up. But if you build it locally, it will do it all linearly. So you can build it both on the CI server or locally. Sometimes you have some complicated script set up on your Jenkins or TeamCity where only the continuous integration server can compile it. But with build graph, anyone can. If the CI server suddenly bursts into flames and explodes, then you can just okay, it doesn't matter. I'll just run it locally. You can also run tests. It will show the tests, which are the Unreal tests. And this is not Horde specific, but if you have multiple projects and they have multiple platform SDKs, you can have just auto SDK set up the SDKs on your agents. Then we have build health. This is a lightweight issue system. We strive for 0 warnings and 0 errors in every build here at Epic Games. So every time there's a single warning, it will get a Horde issue. And it looks like this. They're lightweight. You can also connect to it a Slack thread, a Jira issue like there. You can assign it to a person, and then they can say whether it's been resolved or not. And then if it shows up again, it'll like reopen it. If you try to set it up now, there's nothing about it. There's no documentation. Like maybe if you really like reading through source code, you can set it up. I would recommend just waiting a little bit. In the next version of Unreal 5.5, which hopefully will come out later this year, we do have improvements to it because we're still kind of figuring out, and documentation. But you can do it right away if you want to. It also has studio telemetry, which is analytics to gauge the team's editor performance. So you can see how long it takes to start the editor, enter play an editor, load to map, cook the project, derived datacast, timings, everything like that. And it's really cool to be able to see, oh, wow, the project has gotten a lot slower. Why is that? And you can see like when it happened and look, oh, it's because of reference hell. What's that? Then device management. This is like public or like within your studio ledger of devices. It doesn't do anything but to the devices, but it basically lists the devices. Anyone can say, hey, I have this checked out now. So if anyone else tries to remote in, you can say, hey, look at Horde. I should actually have it checked out. And in this picture, you can see we have the shared tab highlighted. So this is for the users to be able to like just, oh, I want this one, and then I'm going to remote into it. But also Horde will use it. So there's an automation tab, and there we have like other or even the same list. And Horde will actually, like, let's say you want to run some gauntlet tests on target platform. Then Horde can actually say, I need a PS5 dev kit. And if none are available, it'll wait for some maximum amount of hours, which you can configure. And then if someone says, I'm done with it, Horde will take it. Cool. I also mentioned that it serves the data, the metadata for Unreal GameSync. And it does a few other things. For example, when you are looking at Horde logs, it will have hyperlinks to the source files. And of course, if you're in a browser and you click a file, it will just download it. But we have this UGS link protocol. It will actually open Unreal GameSync, and Unreal GameSync will then forward it to Visual Studio and say, hey, the user wants to open this file. So you just click on a file in Horde, and it'll open in your Visual Studio immediately. Artifacts like builds and precompiled binaries, it just stores them for you. You don't have to submit them anywhere else. So you don't have to upload the precompiled binaries to Perforce. Unreal GameSync will just download them directly from Horde. And there's an image of how it works. You can, like at the bottom there, you can click the browse button and download individual files, or you can just download everything as a zip, which is basically what Unreal GameSync does. Then we have this. So previously, teams have used distributed build systems like Incredibuild, SNDBS, or FastBuild. But now, from us, introducing Unreal Build Accelerator. So this is free and publicly available as of Unreal 5.4. It's in beta. And the thing is, if you're not connected to a build like network, and it's just locally, it will even accelerate local builds by like 5 to 10%. It's not much, but it all adds up. We have experimental support for shader compilation, native Mac and Linux support, and even idle and busy process detection. Hopefully in the next version of Unreal, these will come out of experimental. Whew, that was a lot of information. Maybe you've set up Unreal GameSync for your team. Maybe you set up Horde, an Unreal Build Accelerator. In any case, you realized by using these tools, you're not just doing things the right way, you're doing things that's right. Oh. The risk of having swag thrown in people's faces. Code reviews, go do them, just do them. We do them, we use Swarm. It's free from Perforce. And we don't only use Swarm, we also do a lot of like ad hoc code reviews, like someone says, hey, can you come over and look at this? Or, hey, let's have a Zoom call and I'll show you. Or we'll do async Swarm reviews. And how it works is that you shelve, you get the changes reviewed, and then you just submit it. And we usually don't like do auto submit, so if the reviews pass, we'll automatically submit it. We still have to run some validators and stuff like that. Actually, yeah, validators. So like I mentioned before, we keep builds at 0 warnings at Epic Games, and we have pre-commit local validation running on the computer, which is we'll do the non-unity compilation, which catches the missing includes. We'll do static analysis compilation. We'll also do content validation, where it launches the editor in commandlet mode and runs the game's content validation on only the assets you're about to submit. And then also, like you've seen some of our commit messages where it has the hashtags, we just make sure the hashtags are all there and correct. We also do pre-flights, and pre-flights is when you have Horde build a shelf of yours, and it does a lot of extra things. So here at Epic, we need to pre-flight basically every commit. And here's some example of what the Fortnite pre-flight looks like. It's very simple. It just has pre-submit basics. And then we have Unreal 5, which does a lot more things. Unreal 5, like if you want to submit code to Unreal 5, we'll compile all the sample projects, which is like way better to do on the server because the server has way more disk space than, we don't want every user compiling or working on Unreal to have all the sample projects. So the servers will compile them all, make sure it doesn't break anything. And also it will compile all the different platforms like Linux and even Mac, PlayStation, Xbox, even mobile devices. And we do all of this through a tool we have called Submit Tool. What it does is it will do everything I said. It will check the change list, virtualize assets, it will run the validators, and this is a standalone, so it can be launched both from within Unreal Engine and externally via Perforce. And unfortunately, it is not currently available to the public. I was talking to the team and I was like, why not? They're like, oh, because we don't think anyone wants it. And I was like, maybe because no one knows of it. And so like I was thinking, like, does anyone here want it? Like, oh, so I'll take this mic and I'll point it at the audience. And if you want this, just scream, make some noise, and then I'll take your feedback and I'll bring it to the engineers. So this submit tool, is anyone here that wants this? I will bring your feedback to the engineering team. Also, if you have a business manager, like let them know. Let's just hammer the engineering team. They'll be like, okay, fine, we get it, you want it. That's what I want to happen. But this is what it looks like. You can see there like validators running, and then you can submit it, and it will virtualize assets, do a lot of cool stuff. And it's not very Fortnite centric. It's a little bit Unreal Epic centric because of the hashtags. But yeah, I think people should get this. You are probably doing code reviews at your studio. You should be doing them. You're doing content validation, maybe pre-flights, and you're very interested in the submit tool, so you told us you really want them. You realize by doing this, your project breaks less often, and your team is able to work more optimally, which certainly is which way? That is the Epic way indeed. So, derived data. For derived data, let's talk a little bit about the Unreal asset structure. It's made out of these three things. We have the core metadata, which is the U properties, the thumbnail screen, and other essential data. And then we have the bulk data, which is the fat data. This is the source data for the asset, like the mesh, texture, sound, anything like that. And this cannot be presented to the user without converting it to the target platform's format. Then we have derived data. So this is the converted asset for the target platform. And this is always needed, even if you're just using the editor assets on Windows. So textures, they need to be compressed so the GPU can render them. Materials and shaders, they of course need to be compiled. Audio needs to be compressed, everything like that. And this derived data is big, and it can be generated, so we don't check it in because it's already big enough. So this takes a while, especially for larger projects. And I mean, it's all going to have to be generated anyways, eventually. We do try to do it ad hoc. Oh, the shaders, only when you actually see them, we'll try to compile them. Oh, the sign distance fields, only when the mesh first shows up. But if you're going to play through the game, or if you're going to package it, everything needs to be generated eventually. The good thing is that this derived data can be cached and shared. So here are the three layers of the derived data cache. We have the local one, which is on your own computer. Then we have the shared DDC, usually on a network. And then we have the cloud DDC. And usually it's fetched from the fastest cache where the data is available. And if it's not, then you'll generate it locally and then asynchronously propagate to these other layers. So the local DDC, it used to be loose files in previous Unreal versions, and each project had their own DDC folder unless you specifically told Unreal, like, no, only use a single folder on the entire computer, stop duplicating this. But now, introducing Zen. as local DTC store. This is already production ready, and this is enabled by default. If you're using Unreal 5.4, Zen Server is already launched with Unreal. And this avoids performance bottlenecks of using the local file system for DTC. And you have one shared store for all streams and projects, so you only generate the same asset once. And then we have the shared DTC. So this used to be loose files on a network drive. But now, introducing Zen as shared DTC. This is experimental in 5.4, but now the benefits of having a server instead of loose files on your network means that it's more latency tolerant. It has optimized network communications and batch operations. So now, anything anyone else on the same network has built does not need to be generated locally by you. And then we have Cloud DTC. This used to be S3 DTC, which is basically zip drops from Amazon's S3. Not many people used it, I think. We started using this when COVID hit. But now, introducing Unreal Cloud DTC. So this is now in beta in 5.4. It's not experimental anymore, so you can check it out. And with Cloud DTC, anything that anyone else in your entire distributed organization has built does not need to be generated locally by you. And one extra thing that I kind of want to tell you about, this is kind of cool, is that when packaging, it used to be loose files, and then it would like pack them together, or you'd use cook on the fly. But now, introducing Zen Store. It's experimental in 5.4, and again, you get all the same benefits, avoids file system performance bottlenecks. But the thing is, in the future, and like as we're working on it, this will be used for the Holy Grail, incremental cooking in Unreal. I know. We don't have incremental cooking fully working, but we are working on it. We're trying to make cooks as deterministic as possible, so you only need to cook things once, and it'll be in the server. Also, having the server means that you can, for example, make a build on a target platform, like a dev kit or a mobile, and then you only need to copy the executable over, and it will stream over the assets from your computer, so you don't have to move over all of these binary assets. That also means that you can iterate quickly locally, and then just immediately have it working on the dev kit, which is quite nice. You can also have the continuous integration server share cooked data snapshots, then you download those snapshots, and then you have basically the entire cook build, and then you can iterate on top of that, which would be really cool. Then you only cook the delta. Woo. You realize that by taking advantage of the derived data cache layer speeds up everyone, a quality only bestowed on studios that truly do things the epic way, indeed. So, virtual assets. Like I mentioned with the Unreal asset structure, we have a split in those three things. And the bulk data, you might have noticed, it's only used to generate derived data. You don't need both bulk and derived data. How it works before virtualizing is that we have a single file, the U asset, that contains the structured data and the bulk data together. And then from the DTC, you'll get the derived data. But if you have derived data, you don't need the bulk data. So we basically split them. So we have the structured data, which is a smaller file on its own. And then we have the bulk data that we have in a separate repository that we only download as needed. And then lastly, the derived data from the DTC. And this works because derived data is like, you download it really quickly from all these layers. And let me see, bulk data is separate repository, and you only download it when needed. And who needs to download it? It is the person who is adding new content, adding new textures. So they'll add a new texture or a new mesh or anything like that. And then as they're working on it, they'll submit the DTC, and then they'll submit it. And then anyone else will just immediately get the derived data, and they don't even have to download the bulk. Or someone is opening the project and changing texture settings. Again, they're going to be the one creating the DTC and then submit it. So very few people actually need the bulk data anymore, except people who are actually working with the raw assets. But that also means that this is only useful for studios that are fully utilizing all the layers of derived data cache. Because if you start Unreal with virtual assets and there's no derived data, it's going to have to download the bulk data for every single file and then generate the DTC anyways, so there's no benefits. So if your studio is using DTC, turn on virtual assets. Major savings on hard drive space requirements and time to download the project. For example, Fortnite went from 413 gigabytes down to 116 gigabytes. The thing is now we have two separate repositories, so you can't just use Perforce, the virtual client, for pushing, because then it'll all go to the same one. So now you have to use Unreal's tools to submit these virtual assets, like either submitting through Unreal or using, if you get access to it, submit tool, keep bugging us about it, or P4V utils. I'll get to that in a second. There's also something called Perforce Virtual File System. This is great for source assets. Like your source assets are usually like very big. It's your Maya files, it's your Photoshop files, everything like that. And maybe the source asset repo or folder is like a terabyte or something like that. You don't want to download all of it. Of course, you could just go to P4V and download them specifically, but it's a bit of a headache to always have to go to P4V just to download a single file. So using Perforce Virtual File System, it'll basically all look like shortcuts, or like they'll look like files on your computer, but they're not actually downloaded until you actually try to open it. And don't use this on an Unreal Engine project. We have virtual assets, which you should use, but not virtual file system, because Unreal needs to touch all those core data files to read the asset registry and stuff like that. It's touching everything. So if you're virtualizing also those files, you're just going to make individual requests for all of them. Funny thing about this is that both Microsoft, so Xbox Game Studios, and Perforce have released a software called Perforce Virtual File System, or P4VFS, so good luck searching for this. Well, I guess you'll get something, but yeah, you can check them both out and see which one works better for you. You've just learned about virtual assets. You realize that spending less time downloading project files and wasting less hard drive space is not only an efficient way of doing things, but it's also the epic way indeed. Crash reports, you should definitely use crash reports. So there's crash report client for desktop platforms. You could customize it, you should customize it and include it with your shipping game, but also for tests and betas and even the editor itself. So now it's helping your team. It works, so we have our own backend to it, but you don't want it. We don't even want it. So you should use Sentry.io, Bugsplat.com, Backtwist.io, any third party, or you can make your own. And mobile and console platforms generally have their own crash collection. Just remember to store the symbols for your builds through, for example, a program called SimStore. There's, again, links in the article. Now we have other tools. These are offered as is. We do not offer support for these, but it is good for you to know that they are in current use at Epic Games, so we're using them, we're keeping them up to date. But yeah, if you're gonna like ask us for help or create a UTN ticket, you might not get a good solution or response, because I don't think many of them just have an owner even. So like there's always some hot potato who needs to fix it. But maybe you'll get something out of it. So the first one is RoboMerge. So RoboMerge offers automatic merges between branches, and it does it per change list. So it's not doing like big bulk merges, only per change list. So it keeps the change list history. This is available under Engine Extras RoboMerge. And you can set up rules per branch with a config file, or users can even override it, if you allow it, via the change list commit messages with the hashtags. We use it heavily at Epic Games, so we make sure this works for us. Conflicts from RoboMerge, if like someone edited an asset even though Unreal said it's going to get overwritten, then they need to be resolved ASAP. RoboMerge will say there's a conflict, it's stopping any other commits coming through. We will send an email and Slack ping to the author of the conflict. And there's even an automatic Slack ping to the triage team if no one has acknowledged it in 10 minutes for the important branches, like Fortnite and Unreal. We have some demo projects where we're just like, I don't know, we don't care. And it's been like stuck for days, but someone should probably look into that. But yeah, for Unreal and Fortnite, we have automatic ping, and then someone higher up, well, you don't want it to happen, basically. It's embarrassing. So usually when you submit something, you maybe hang around for 20, 30 minutes, make sure that the whole pre-flight or automatic build goes through. Otherwise, you're going to be pinged like that. So don't submit and run. Maybe just wait and do it the next day. Then we have Unsync. This is incremental binary download and patching tool for build delivery. Again, we're using this at Epic Games. It's like Z-Sync, RS-Sync, and CA-Sync. If you used those before, it's available under Engine Source Programs Unsync and Unsync UI. So we have both command line and GUI options. And what it does, it just downloads builds from NAS, from your network drive. But because it splits it up into chunks. So if any chunks are unchanged, it will just say, I don't need to download you again. And you can also download builds from any platform. So here you can see some check marks like get the PlayStation 5 client, get the Android or whatever. And for more public-facing builds, like for example, if you have a playtest at the company or you're going to have a beta or something for some users, honestly, we just use Epic Games Launcher. So we use that for private builds of like Fortnite stuff that we want the whole studio to test. Don't use Unsync for that. And other companies that are using, for example, other launchers like Steam or itch.io, even, they can use their launchers to download these things. We do have an optional proxy server, but it's not currently public. I don't know if you want it. I don't know. It exists, just so you know. And other game studios, they also use solutions like just downloading directly from the network drive, just open it and copy it over. That also works for smaller studios. I know some indie studios that just use Google Drive. And also Resilio, which uses torrent technology to distribute it. And then there's enterprise software like Aspera. And then we have UCL. UCL is available under Engine Extras UCL. This is a quality of life command line tool for common programmer actions. It has got a great tab completion. So you can basically go, dot cook and then do tab and then see what options it has. And instead of there's no sexy screenshot, it's just a terminal. But to give you some examples of what you can do with it, you can write .build game. We'll build the game runtime target binary for your current platform. .cook will cook the game's assets. .perforce cherry pick, and then the number. This is quite cool because it will integrate or unshelve depending on what kind of change list it is. And then you have .perforce clean. It will delete intermediate and temp folders. P for reset is basically like do a clean slate and act like I just downloaded everything. And then lastly, there are a lot of commands in there, and some of these might become your new favorite commands. I would recommend just go to that folder. It's already compiled. Just start the bat file, and you'll have the command line pop up. Just write .help in it and see everything that's available. I was showing this presentation to one of my coworkers who is a programmer, a developer on the Unreal Engine, and he said, and I quote, "I think every programmer on Unreal Engine should be using this." Check it out. And finally, we have P4V utils. So this is available under Engine Extras P4V utils. You can install it to your Perforce client with just by running P4V utils space install, or you can distribute it through what we call a custom Unreal GameSync tool. So Unreal GameSync has these tools. We have XML file to describe them, and that's where we have it. But what it does is that it adds right-click context menu actions to P4V change lists. It's got a bunch of stuff. You can check out what it does with P4V utils-help. But one of my favorite things you can do is you can just right-click on a shelf and start a Horde pre-flight directly from there. And it will open the browser with everything already filled, and you can start a pre-flight. So you don't have to go to Horde, copy and paste the shelf number and stuff like that. It just makes it easier. I just told you about some of our miscellaneous tools. You realize that you can take advantage of our tools that we offer as is, and also rein in your expectations of any support from us. Then, and only then, are you truly doing things. That is right, everyone. These are the last t-shirts we have. I could not have made this presentation without the help from many people. These are all the studios that I interviewed for this. So now I would like you to just start clapping as I list everything up. So please, thank you, my coworkers at Epic Games. Thank you, the Coalition, Lightspeed LA, Splash Damage, CT Project Red, One More Level, Lucid Games, Romero Games, Striking Distance Studios, Violasoft Studio, Housemark, and Merkur Games. Thank you so much. See all these epic people. Amazing. Thank you. Okay. Quiet down now. Quiet, my lovelies. I have one more thank you to give out, but before we do that, I want to remember this forever. So if you come to my previous talks, you know I always take a selfie. I want to take a selfie with you, and I want us to do the whole thing the big way. So please, can we get some light on the audience, please? Matt, I want you to come here behind me. Aaron, come over on stage. Chris, come on over. Let's do an epic selfie with this audience. Epic audience. Okay. Yeah, so, okay. Crowds down there. Okay, is everyone ready? Are you filming? We have just learned how to set up an Unreal Engine studio. Thank you, Prague!